Welcome. So I know you've gotten a lot out of what Elizabeth has shared with you this morning. Now we're going to talk content. You know how to stand up here. Now you need to know what to say and why. You asked that question earlier. What did you play when you were a child? Did you play Army? Have your gun out. Did you play doctor? No, I didn't mean that kind of doctor. I meant, you know, stethoscope, are you alive doctor. Did anybody play Pretty Pretty Princess? Well, I have to tell you what I played. I played speaker. I know that sounds weird, but it's exactly what the story my mother tells all the time. There I was at 3 years old with my little wicker chair in the kitchen, and I step on it and I say, okay, you have to listen to me. Are you hearing me out there? So I guess I was one of the 3%. What really happens? 97% of you don't really want to speak. Does that resonate with anybody in the room? Yes. A few of you, yes. And of course, if you're behind the camera, he says, yes, that would be me. Most people don't want to speak, and that's really the key, isn't it? So let me tell you my story of how I ended up becoming a speaker, if I may. The very first thing I did was work for a private college as a speaker lead generator. So I had 6 different programs that I went out and gave to high school and college campuses. Pass out the little forms, they get to tell them whether they want information, what they want information about, and my return rate was over 80% consistently. So what did I learn? The takeaway? Wow, qualified leads can come from speaking. I like this. This could work really well. Then it was as a speaker for the Tax Reduction Institute out of Washington, D.C. I worked for platform speaker Sandy Botkin, who is a CPA and was a tax attorney, turned inform the public, would give a day-long seminar that was a paid seminar, and I was the dog and pony show for 20 minutes in every office in town to make sure that his rooms were filled. And the neat thing was, I got an opportunity to learn you could take money after you do a 20-minute speech. Whoa, this is even better. Qualified leads, and I can take money. I loved it. The next way that I learned to speak was to market as a goals coach with Success Motivation Institute. Well, here was a little different because before I had always been given the presentations. So I went to Toastmasters to learn how could I actually write a speech? I didn't need to learn how to not be nervous and all of that, which is fabulous, and that's what Toastmasters has been for, but I didn't learn that. What I needed to learn was how to put the speech together. So I learned something new and was able to do that and fill my coaching programs for years through speaking. Then there was another one. I have a little daughter now and a mother that's not so young, and they both needed me to be available. So what did I do to fill my time and have an actual job, so to speak? I did direct sales. So how could you make direct sales a speaking engagement? I sold clothing, went out to financial offices, corporations, and I spoke about wardrobe choices, especially for those cute young things that think dressing like Heather Locklear instills confidence. When I did that, I got all kinds of qualified prospects. Learned another thing. Really, speaking could be used for almost any business. So by now, I was convinced speaking is the way to go if you want to get qualified prospects that you know you can follow up on and that will result in sales. So now I'm teaching others to do that and having a blast. Watching other clients use speaking to turn their business around, to get an opportunity to bring in the clients that they are looking for, not just speaking everywhere. So are you ready to speak? Anybody want to think that's a really great idea for maybe bringing in clients? Okay, let me separate those two questions out. How many think it might be a really good way to bring in clients? Yeah, more hands. How many think it might be a really good way for them to bring in clients? Not so many hands sometimes, right? So let's talk about why that will work. The biggest thing is my head got really, really big. My ego was stroked every time I went out and spoke. Every time. People would come up, yeah, I love listening to you speak. This is great. And then somebody said to me the silliest thing. I wish you could deliver Zig Ziglar's information. Well, my head got this big. Of course, then I met Zig Ziglar, stood and spoke with him and his wife, and realized how absurd that was. But that wasn't until many years later, and I truly understood how silly that is. But my ego didn't know any better. My ego was inflated. I was bulletproof because I'm one of the 3%. I can stand up here and speak, and I'm wonderful. But you know what I knew in my secret heart? I hadn't prepared as well as I could have. I would get up and wing it. And everybody still loved it. And you know why? It wasn't because I was all that good. It's really because 97% of you don't want to be doing this. So they were just glad you were up there. They were thrilled that you could do what they couldn't do. So they complimented you for it. I thought that was a really good presentation. You held my attention. More or less. They didn't say that. But I knew it was really more or less because I hadn't prepared to the best of my ability. I knew that. They didn't know that. But I knew that in my secret heart. So the challenge is getting a big ego and thinking that you could produce, speak on, present anything. Because really, if you haven't planned it, if you haven't crafted it, you really aren't hitting the target that you are looking for. Does that make sense? So, are you a sales professional or a business owner? Well, actually, that's not an or. That's an and. If you're a business owner, you are a sales professional, yes. You don't have a choice because you need to bring in sales. Even your artists need to bring in sales, yes? That's the challenge. We don't want to have the sales brain. So don't. Have a speaker's brain. It's a lot more fun, at least for those of us who have learned to do that. So how are you keeping your pipeline full now? Many people are going out and doing the one-on-ones. Does that sound familiar in the room? Yeah, I see a few hands. One-on-one coffees. And you sit for a half an hour, if you're lucky, and determine whether there's a match there. And if you did that 4 times a day, 5 days a week, you'd have spoken with 20 people. Oh, heck, don't do that week after week. Speak to 4 groups a week and get at least that many people to know who you are and what you do. That is the joy of being able to speak for prospects and for profit. You have an opportunity to reach many more people. And what does standing up here do? What do you think of someone who's standing up on a stage? I'm not standing up on that stage. They don't think I'm an expert, but they think they're an expert. Isn't that true? That they automatically have some cachet that says, oh, they're an expert. They're standing up there. Yeah. That's what you get to do by becoming a speaker, is have that same cachet and keep your pipeline full with less effort. That gets exciting to me, making sure that you use less time, less effort to create more profit. So what's the difference between a keynote and a business speech? In a keynote, you want to motivate, personally motivate somebody to do something, call to action, or you want them to pay you for coming and speaking. That's a keynote speech. It's actually very different. And you can't take a keynote speech and then tack on a sales close and call it a sales speech or a business speech, as I call it. It doesn't work that way because they need to be engineered very differently. When you are speaking specifically for business, you have a different motivation. Your motivation for speaking for business is to leverage your time. As we said, get to more people quickly. The other is to build your list. Don't we all need a list these days? If we're doing any social media, if we're doing email campaigns that are permission-based, we have to have a list. This is a fabulous way just to do that, not counting, be able to go all the way through to the close. Building your list is wonderful. As you speak, you can offer them a white paper that you have. Here, put in your card, I'll send you my white paper, and if you'd like to be on my mailing list, put ML, mailing list. Great, now you have permission, and they do go on your mailing list. But there's more. If you learn how to do it correctly, you can also give them exposure to your really professional expertise. So now they have exposure to, maybe you have a different topic than others. You have a different way you approach a typical topic. You want to make sure that people hear that. More people hear that. Also, you want to motivate an audience to take action from your business speech. What action do you want them to take? Well, you want them to either meet with you, find out more about you, or maybe become a client or buy your product. And you can do that by the way you craft your speech and the way that you present your close, and give them an opportunity to know more about you, what you do, and what you provide. So the universal goal in creating a speech, we're going to go into some very specific goals, but the universal goal when creating a speech is to create a movie in the mind of the audience that continues to play and is connected to you over and over and over again. Several of us heard a fabulous speaker on this stage yesterday, and Casey Eberhardt was a master at creating a visual movie in my mind of what crummy networking looks like. The little cheese cubes, the Triscuits, everybody recognize that visual? He made that movie play over and over again in my mind. I don't want that. So that means I need what? I need Casey. That's the overriding goal of what we do as speakers. So there are several steps, 10 steps to a completed business speech. One, and Elizabeth has already spoken about that this morning, what's the relief you provide? And here's how I say that. So when your clients finish working with you, what do you do that takes their shoulders out of their ears? Oh, I feel better because I worked with you. What's the complete relief that you provide? And there's so much that goes into that, as we talked about this morning. It's not what you do, it's not how you do it, nobody cares. And as I always say, nobody cares if you stand in your head with an egg on one foot, as long as I get the relief. So forget that. Remember to talk about what complete relief you give. I'm just going to give this list, and we're going to go back over a few of these in depth. We can't do all of them this morning or this afternoon, but we will go through a few of them. You have to know for whom you do this. Who is it that is the beneficiary? Then you need a sales funnel. You need to know what your sales funnel is. Where do your clients jump in? What's the process that you take them through to lead them to their first sale? Do you have a process for further sales? What's that sales funnel? And yesterday we learned that at Red Carpet Results. Adrienne Ashley shared that with us to some degree, but she's got a whole program about it. Sales funnel's important. It's not just something you whip out tomorrow. You have to really think about this. Action. What action do you want them to take at the end of the speech? You have to write stories. I will talk about stories today because I think that stories are the most important to the overriding goal of creating a movie that continues to play in their mind. Then we have sales tie downs. I know, I said the S word now. Don't freak out yet. You still are in sales. We talked about that earlier. You need sales tie downs, but you need them not to be salesy, what I call stealth sales. We want to tie them down a little bit here, tie them down a little bit here, and tie them down here. That they're going to need something. They're going to need something. You're also going to need something here. And you don't have to say it's you yet. And then you come out with, oh, and at the end of this, I can show you how I do all of that without it being a sales talk. Credibility. You do have to give your credibility. Now, does that mean give your long list of degrees and letters behind your name? Maybe if that's the kind of speech you're giving and that's the audience you're trying to appeal to. But for most of us, not really. For most of us, they just want to know what's relevant. Make sure it's relevant to what your topic is, and that expertise will help them get what? That relief that they're looking for. Then, of course, you have to create a title, and we'll play with the title just a little bit later. Then you do have to order the stories and the tie-downs, of course. You have to have a wonderful opening. Why do you have to have a wonderful opening? You have to have an opening that gets them out of the text they just read. Dog chewed up your shoes. You have to get them out of the phone call they just had. 3 people didn't come to work. Get back here soon. You have to take them away from the world they just left and bring them into yours. And you have to do that quickly. You have about 3 minutes to get them there, or you're going to be nowhere. And then, of course, a close. If you have an opportunity to speak in the room, sell in the room, then you have that kind of close. Wonderful. Includes dollars. You learn how to do that. Terrific. And often I teach you to close without necessarily a dollar figure attached. I call it the free speaking gravy train. There are a lot of free speaking opportunities out there. And we do talk about where you should speak, not that you want to speak anywhere and everywhere that will have you. In the beginning you do, just to get practice, but then you'll hone it down so that you're doing it more targeted to your particular niche and make sure that you have the right people in the room. But at the beginning you can do that. So the close will be key. So here's the key, first thing. What do you do? That relief. I want you to really think about this and write this down for yourself. What do you do that provides the relief we talked about? We talked earlier about you provide the luxury of leaving a pet without guilt in a luxury pet hotel. What do you provide that allows them to feel relief? M&M's, one of my favorites. It has nothing to do with candy. Melts in your mouth, not in your hand. Had nothing to do with the candy. Had to do with moms who didn't want their kids to have chocolate all over everything. You have to think of the relief, not in terms of what you do, not in terms of how you do it, but in terms of truly how does that recipient completely feel relief after working with you. And if you're a coach, you have to learn how to really craft that so you sound unique. Not like every other coach on the street. Oh, I provide you a map to tell you where you're going. Okay. And then I help you get there. Okay. But anybody could have said that. So you need to really take time to craft this. This is not an overnight occurrence. Who do you do this for? It's key to know who your audience is. And what do most of us hear as an introduction when we walk in somewhere? Who do you work with? Oh, I work with anybody who... I'm sorry, I can't refer anybody to you. Would you please be more specific so that I can think of the people that I know? Oh, my clients are left-handed mommies with toddlers under 3. Great! I can think of 2. Would you rather have my 2 referrals or me going home not knowing who to refer to you? You'd rather have the 2. So be as laser-focused with your niche as you can. Even if you come up with 2 or 3 and those are the ones that you talk about intermittently, that's fine. But really, if you can get them all together in one statement, you will have people looking for your clients over and over again. So with that niche, of course, it's very important that now you're looking for groups to speak to that have that client there, that have that preferred prospect, the one you love to speak to, the one you love to work with. Isn't that the key? That you get to have fun if you're in your own business. You get to work with whomever you want. And that is what I love about having my own business. I get to craft my talk that laser focuses on the client I want. The rest I hope I just simply entertain. And that's terrific. They'll invite me back maybe just for that. But in the meantime, I have lit up those preferred prospects in the room to want to come and talk to me afterwards, find out what I do, maybe set an appointment. Do you know what your niche is? I'd like you to take a moment and write it down. What laser, even if it's just one and you can't craft the whole thing right now, that's fine. But think of one target area. They call it a target market, but you've heard that so many times, you're not thinking about it anymore, right? It's like, yes, I've heard target market, I'll figure it out later. I really want you to think of a little microcosm, a little community, group of people that you could market specifically to. This does a couple of things. Of course, you know the one we talked about makes it easier for people to refer, makes it easier for you to find the community where they will be so that you may speak to them, but it also does something else. It creates a nest, right? You're in that little nest where they actually communicate with each other and will share all about you and give you as a referral to each other. And that's the great nest. So niches are so important to your business. You hear it over and over again, but I'm going to guess that many of you have not truly made yourself choose at least just one niche. You need to get to know them. Do you get to know them because, oh, I work with them all the time? Maybe. But if you're starting out, maybe you don't know them that well. So you would seek those individuals out that could be your ideal client and ask questions. Ask questions. Look, I'm not looking for you to become a client right now, honestly. But you, I think, are my ideal client. May I ask you a few questions? Do you have 5 minutes for me? We met at a networking thing. Do you have 5 minutes for me to just ask a few questions? I need to do some market research. How many of you are going to say no to that? We love to help each other. You need to take the time to do this research so that you have clearly got who your niche is. Now, what about your sales funnel? You all heard about it. Sales funnel, right? It looks like this and drops down in a little bucket that is sales. And then if you're doing it right, you have another little bucket that fewer number drop down into more sales. But let's start with the big part of the funnel. Where do they jump in for you? Do you know where they jump in? Do you have to have a one-on-one with them for them to see what you do? In some businesses you do. But I'm going to challenge you to think that it may not be true in your business. So many of us think that's the only way to work. Think about it a little harder and you may come up with a new strategy. If you're a coach, one of the best ways is a strategy session, a free strategy session. Most don't recommend that you give a free coaching session because then they get all kinds of answers and they go on their merry way and they say, well, next time I have a problem, I'll call you. Instead, you give them a strategy session. They come away with some clarity, how they can do the next step, and then you shared with them how you can help them take that next step. And that's the strategy session that can work so well for you. Is that where they come into your funnel, or is it a phone call? Is it a phone call to decide whether they want to meet with you, and then you go to the strategy session? Is it if you sell blinds? Is it you need an appointment in the house so you can see their colors and share with them? And you're looking at me saying, yeah, Kari, that's a sales talk. A blinds salesman is never going to do a speech. I disagree. How could you make it really informational around blinds? Well, you go to interior design, you go to psychology of color, you go to psychology of light in the room on your business. You decide if you're a dentist, you want it to be light and airy and nothing dark, nothing dour. You want to make sure light gets into your office because they're already scared when they walk in. So we want to create the color that creates the calm before they come into my office. That's what I do as a blind. Not a blind salesperson, a blind salesperson. Almost any business can use speaking as a way to show their expertise. You'll be surprised if you really think about it. Have someone reflect it back to you. What are the possibilities? I'm not seeing this. Can you help me out here? Because we often don't see our own. We need help. And that's what a friend is really helpful in, is helping you decide, I'm not seeing speaking with this here. How do I make that happen? Now, once you have designed your speech, which we will talk more about, what you still have to decide, we're not ready to speak yet. We have to figure out what action we want them to take at the end of the speech. So we still can't write our speech. You can't just jump in, write a speech, go give it, and expect to get maximum results. Of course you could do that, and we've done it, I've done it. But not to the effectiveness that I know when you really follow these steps in order that you can have. The return on your investment in time will be manyfold if you take the time to craft it in what I call outcome engineering. What are the outcomes? So the first outcome is, what action do you want them to take? Now you know where they jump into your sales funnel, right? We've done sales funnel. And of course, this is something you're going to still have to take more time to do. Once you figure that out, then you need to know what action you want these people to take. Once you have them, and they're ready to meet with you, make an appointment, they're ready to jump somewhere, you have to have a place for them to land. So what action do you actually want them to take when you are finished with your speaking engagement? You need to know what your outcome is. What do you want them to do? How do you want them to engage with you? Have it planned out. If there's an initial phone call, have it planned out. That has to be scripted too, because the right words will have them wanting to meet with you, and the wrong words will have them saying, well, I don't know, talk to me later. All of these things need the correct scripting, and it makes a big difference. So let's give an example. Let's say you're a web designer. So who are you appealing to? Remember I said who and what action. So you're a web designer, and here's what you say to me. Well, I want to work with anyone who really is a small business and doesn't have a website yet, or a little bit bigger business who needs a website redone. Well, that's just about everybody. How am I going to refer to you? Who do you work with? As opposed to, I work with restaurants to help them craft a website that draws their customer in to want to eat there and experience and have the whole experience of the restaurant. Well, that's a niche that you could work with. But if you said just anybody, it's not helpful. Now, what action would you want them to take? Often they say, well, I want them to get a review of their website. Well, we already know what you're going to say about my website. You're going to review it or critique it, and you're going to say, I need a new one. I get that. So maybe that's not what I'm looking for as a client, the first thing. How about if we do a strategy session about what you'd like your website to accomplish and see if it matches up? Would that be helpful to you? Oh, yes, that would be much more helpful to me than just for you to criticize my website, because we know that's what's going to happen. Give them step by step. Give them an opportunity to jump in the place you want them to be. You control this. An organizer. I have organizers all the time that say, well, who do you work with? And of course, what's their answer? Anyone who feels overwhelmed in their office or their home. Okay. Right? The whole audience just raised their hand, almost. Okay, so that's great, but is there somebody specific I could refer to you? Well, yes, actually, instead of both business and home, I prefer to work with businesses. Actually, I like to work with home-based businesses. I like to work with direct selling women to create a space that is their executive suite at home. Ah, I can refer those women to you. And could you find that niche to speak to? All day long. This is why the niche is so important, is so that you can express exactly who it is you work with and what you want them to do. Because once you've decided that, then, well, I can do a 30-minute strategy session for how to work in your office more effectively. Wonderful. That's the idea, right? Get them where you want them to be. That's the most important. Once you've decided those things, all that outcome engineering is key to you knowing how to write the speech. The next part, we're not ready to write the speech yet. We have to write stories. Stories are what get us. And why is that? Because they trigger emotions if they're told well. And I'm going to challenge you to not tell stories, but to speak in a way that invites them into the story. Did I ask you how you played when I started out my opening this morning? It helped you see what you did. I want you to think about you, not you to think about me. Then I brought you back to me. Stories are key to triggering emotion, and let me tell you why. And I'm going to do the basic left-right brain. We know there's so much more research out there, but just for the sake of this conversation, in left brain terms, we have logical things. Great. Yes, Kari, I kind of get what you're saying. No, that's not making any sense to me. It's the logical side. But in the right brain, for lack of a better term, it's emotions that are stored there and pictures. And do we buy mostly logically? We buy mostly emotionally. Even if you are a scholar, right? Even if you're a scholar character code, you still have an emotional side that helps you buy it once you've got all the data. It's the same thing here. You must appeal to their emotions. And I do this especially with nonprofits, teaching them how to tell the story that appeals to the emotion, ties down, and still is tied to volunteering or opening your checkbook. Not just tugging at the emotion. That's great, but I want the tie downs that go with it. And we'll talk about the sales tie downs. So let's say, what are some sales tie downs that we could talk about? What does a sales tie down look like? What do you mean, Kari? How do you haven't had sales training? Is that what some of you were telling me? Oh, and there's a few in the back go, oh yeah, I've had lots of it. Sales training, of course, teaches us that you want to take them on this path and tie them down a little bit. So that's what the story does. Okay, so the story takes them on this path, then you tie them down to an idea. And the tie down is you'll need more. You'll need further. You need the information synthesized for you. You need me to go out there and be sure that I get all this great information for you and bring it back to you, but you only want this much. That's a service, isn't it? Whatever the information I as a salesperson would have, that's great. You don't want all that. You just want the stuff that's going to work for you. That's a tie down. You'll need me, right? But you don't say that. You don't say, well, you'll need me to synthesize all the information for you. Not in one of the free opportunities. You'll want to say, you need to find a way to get just the information you need so you're not spending too much time. That's a small tie down. Could be that you say, well, you'll need ongoing support for that particular endeavor that you're looking to do. Ongoing support. You don't have to say, I'm your ongoing support. Really, I'm right here. They know that. They're expecting that. So we do not have to hit them over the head. You don't have to even say any of that. They understand. And then we can save it for the end and say, oh, by the way, I am that person. I could do that for you. Story and sales tie down together. How on earth do you do that? Well, let's talk about your personal story first. Anybody having here's the thing that I always thought in speaking. I did not die and come back to life. I have not been in a horrendous car wreck. I lived behind a white picket fence with two parents that were married for 40 years, and we went on 3-week vacations together. So what do you want to hear from me? I didn't get over anything. I don't have anything tough to share. But you don't need that. For years, I used to think to be a real platform speaker, I'd have to have some tragedy in my life, something I actually got over to share with you. And you don't need that. You have your own personal story. Now, it may be that, and I would tend to use it if you're comfortable doing so. But you don't need to have some tragic story to get over in order for you to have a great story to tell. One client's so cute. She is a physical fitness trainer, and she tells the story of she and her husband being in Hawaii and bringing him to the gym. Now, she's this body shape that did the jeweled bikini thing, right? Bridget is so adorable. She takes her husband to Hawaii, and she takes him to the gym to show him what to do. And all the other people around were watching, and she thought, I could do this for lots of people. That's how I got passionate about what I'm doing. That's a story. We'd weave it a little differently. I'm telling you the basics, but that's a story. And it talks about her topic, and it shows why she has passion about what she does. Stories can come in many shapes and forms. What's your story? Do you know? Have you thought about it for yourself? What are several of your stories? You may have a ton of stories you could tell, so maybe you have to pick out just a few. And they don't have to be related. I'm going to share that with you too. They do not have to be related to your topic necessarily. Many times we can tie it down to the topic with a good old-fashioned sales tie down. One of my friends has a great speech. And she tells all this wonderful story about how she and her husband met. She went to Africa with her girlfriend who said, I'm taking you to meet your husband. She's like, what are you, nuts? Okay, I'll humor you, but I'd love to go to Africa. So they go to Africa together. And one of the situations they find themselves in is they're in a Jeep being chased by a rhino. How scary is that? So she tells the whole story. So she has your heart thumping. Okay, you're being chased by a rhino. I never felt anything like that before. It was amazing. And here we are going. And then she stops in her speech and she says, does your office ever feel like that? What do you think she does for a living? Office organizer. That story did not have anything to do with what she does. Was she able to connect the two? You bet. And she did find a husband, and she's married to him, by the way. I just thought I'd finish that story for you. It's a fantastic way to put it together. Any story that's part of your life, you can learn to tie it down to what it is that you do. Might take a little finagling, a little word crafting, but I'll bet you we can do it. And together, I know we can do it. It's a lot of fun to take the stories of our lives and share something of us. And why do I think that's so important? If you want someone to spend money with you, you have to reveal something of yourself. It cannot be a facts and figure speech. It cannot be what I do, how I do it, and I do it the best. That's not enough these days. People want to buy from people. And if they see that you're one of their people, they'll want to buy from you even more. But the only way they're going to find that out is if you tell a story, or two or three, about you, about your foibles, about something that happened, about a great way you met your husband. Whatever it might be, you need to tell that story so that they can get a glimpse of you, so that they can want to see and talk to you afterwards and find out more about how you can provide them the relief. They now build trust just from you speaking in front of the room. And that's key. We all know that we buy from people we trust. And you think, well, but I can't build trust. I'm this far away from you. Yes, if I can give you a little window into my life, I can build trust with the right people. And that's what I want to do. Another example, one of the speeches that I help write for a client, he's circumnavigated the globe, sailboat, great. And he is crafting a business somewhere around his sales expertise, which he owned a very successful sales organization. And now he's back on land and needs to find another job, or create one, I should say. And he wants to use his experience of circumnavigating the globe to be able to talk about his new business venture. Well, after reading his book and interviewing him, I took Larry's story and we looked at how he prepared his crew for Pirate Alley. They were about to go through the strait where most of the pirates were hanging out and attacking ships. Cruise ships. Mostly small yachts. Kind of scary to know that this, and how many times have we heard it on the news? So to prepare yourself for that takes quite a bit, both physically and mentally. So Larry got his crew fired up. We have to do this. We have to make sure we have not all of our valuables hidden away. Leave some out so they'll be satisfied. Don't leave the best GPS out. Leave the secondary one. Hide the really good one. And if all else fails, just remember, most of their boats aren't very big and ours is bigger than them. We can ram them. Well, how am I going to tie that to sales? But we know in sales what really happens to your brain. In your brain, you have gremlins, don't you? You have gremlins that can steal your resolve. So, what did we say in his talk? Don't let the gremlins steal your resolve. Don't let the pirates of thought steal your resolve, just like Pirate Alley. We were able to tie down a completely different story to what he's doing now, and we can do the same. I know every one of you can do the same and create a story that lets your audience see you, see inside you a little bit, see if they want to work with you already, and get excited about running up to talk to you afterwards. And this time, hopefully it won't be just a compliment because you're one of the 3%. It'll be a compliment because you've really ignited something in them to want to do more work with you. So how do you discover your personal story? If you don't have a traditional, great, tragic, or inspirational personal story, how do you discover yours? The best way? Ask your colleagues, ask people you've worked with, ask your family, and ask your friends. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to use all the stories they give you. I understand that. Some of them you'll laugh at. But we did this at the last boot camp I had, and it was very interesting to have the people come back the next day and say, oh, my wife said this was my story, and I didn't even recognize it. They will reflect back to you what your story is. They know, your friends and your family. And again, you don't have to use them all, thank goodness. Some of your friends aren't really willing to give you something valuable. They want to give you something funny. Now, you do have to establish your credibility, and you can do that with a story. You can do that with a story of yourself. Maybe you needed personal transformation, went out and got a lot of it, learned how to do it, so now you want to give it to your audience. This is the audience you want to serve. So that's one way. That's a personal story, and it builds your credibility. That could be. Maybe you have real qualifications. We talked about this earlier, but I wanted to go a little bit more in depth because credibility can also be talking about your clients. Who's been satisfied? You could talk about the little old lady we saw earlier when we were talking about the pet hotel. Wonderful. Just like little old Mrs. So-and-so when she had to leave for her nephew's wedding, her grandson's wedding, right? She had the luxury of being able to leave her pet with us. So those third-party stories can also be your credibility, how well you achieve, how well you accomplish what you set out to accomplish with each one of your clients. Also, why are you passionate about what you do? That's a big deal. Why are you passionate? I'd love to know what makes you tick, a little bit at least. Why are you doing this? Why would I want to come to you? What ignites you? That always draws me to someone. If they have a reason that they're completely passionate about what they do, I want to work with them. And I want to borrow some of their passion. You have to have a good title. Nobody wants to book you if you don't have a good title. Now, we haven't even written the speech yet, right? I still haven't said you can go write your speech. We're still outcome engineering. Now, I find it easier to write my title a little ahead. Some people prefer to write the title after they have the speech mostly written. It doesn't really matter, whichever works for you. But I tend to write my title first because I like something silly, something fun, something catchy, and then I'll kind of put my speech around that a little bit so that it targets that particular title, as long as the title is going to really explain what it is that I do. So what I'm teaching you today is what I call the 20-minute appetizer, right? Or has been called the 20-minute appetizer speech. To more information about me. So here's what I titled it. The 20-minute pickup line for business professionals. Because don't you need a date? You need a date so you can decide whether you're going to be provider and client. But not everybody's going to want to book that. It makes them laugh, and that gets me in the door. But the real key is, if they don't want that title, they're still not going to book you. So I have a secondary title, and it says the 20-minute prospecting solution. And some will book it or use that title. But the first one gets their attention. That's what I like. I used to get booked a lot with when your willpower won't. When your willpower feels more like won't power. That got me booked a lot. So you do need a catchy title. But it can't be just catchy and cute if it isn't descriptive. It still has to indicate something about what you are going to share with them. And again, more than one title. Have more than one. And many speakers have several different titles, and it is the same speech, just a little different bent on it, a little different way they're presenting it, or a little different audience that they are focused on when they create that title. So now putting your speech together becomes important. Now we can, because we know exactly who it is that we want in the audience, who we want to light up in the audience to come speak with us, exactly what action we want them to take. Now we're ready to put the speech together. We've written down a few stories. We've learned how to tie them down to what our topic is. Little tie downs. Now you get to write the speech. Well, here's the challenge. Many of you, I can see the nods. No, I don't write speech. I don't write it. I just do it out loud. I'm here to tell you, I don't think that's good, and here's why. Let me tell you, actually, up until a week ago, I thought that was a good thing too. But remember, I can wing it. I can wing it. No, I can't wing it. Not really. If I want the desired outcome to be consistent, to be big, and to make sure I'm always getting the prospects that are in the room to come and talk to me for more profit. No, I can't wing it. Not really. And it was proven to me very explicitly by David Brooks last weekend. I happened to speak on a stage right after him for an event, and he was the 1990 champion for Toastmasters, world champion, and he showed us the Gettysburg Address. Anybody know how long the Gettysburg Address is? 2 minutes, 20 seconds with music. How impactful is that speech? 2 minutes and 20. Do you think he winged it? No. So David Brooks proved to me that it needs to be crafted and written well. And winging it might be fun. It's a little bit of an ego boost. But is it really going to get you results? Not nearly as much. Not nearly as crafting every word. And it was 2 minutes and 20 seconds. I'm going to guess you have to cut your speech down. There's a lot of extraneous material in there, and those stories you wrote down or would write down in this exercise, yes? So now you have to pare it down, pare it down. How does it really help the preferred prospect see you? How does it really help them identify what you do? Make sure economy of words is key. And when it's economy of words and you're only using a few, they must be the right ones that really ignite the action that you're looking for at the end of the speech. It's key. And then the last thing is, of course, the close. If nothing else, the close has to be crafted, doesn't it? You have to make sure that it says just exactly what you need your audience to hear that will get them up out of their chairs and coming to see you or rushing to the back of the table if you have the opportunity to sell. This has to be crafted. Make no mistake about it. Winging it doesn't cut it. And I'm speaking from a personal perspective of tried that, been there, and done it a lot. Honestly, it's better when you craft it so that you can actually get the desired outcome that you want. Making sure that all of this is funneling that audience into what you want. Not just being entertaining and enjoying it and getting compliments, and a few people get to come up and ask you what you do and you get a client or two. That feels like a success, but it's not. Not really. The success is when you know how many people are in the room, how many people wanted information, how many you closed. And this is the last part of the whole process. You must know your numbers because the numbers don't lie. You must know how many people are in the room. I have a form. How many people were in the room? How many people turned a card in for whatever giveaway I may have done? How many said on the back of it they wanted to be on my newsletter? And I have several different ways of making that happen, whether it's a business card or it's a keep in touch form, whatever. How many did you connect with afterwards? How many did you meet with? And how many did you close? If you know that, and you clearly write down exactly what audience you spoke to, you can book yourself that way over and over again. Or if the results weren't so great, then don't book there. Or any audience that's similar to that. This is a great way for you to hone in on which audiences produce the best results for you. You want to make sure that you've got the right audience in front of you if you're going to take the time to craft the speech, tell your good stories, the juicy ones. Let them into you just a little bit. Then don't waste your time in front of the wrong audience. Make sure you've found the right audience. And then you can figure out what your profit is, which is my favorite part. Yeah, the prospects are great, but I want the profit. So I've created a profit worksheet to help you discern, to really see how your business can benefit from using speaking as a marketing tool to garner more prospects and bigger profit. So if you'd like to get that worksheet, you can go to my website at speakerssecretweapon.com. That's speakers, plural, speakerssecretweapon.com. And you can download my profit worksheet and find out if speaking is your next lead generator.